It was supposed to be the happiest day of Ethan Taylor's life, graduation day. The air buzzed with joy as classmates hugged their families, posed for pictures, and tossed their caps into the sky. But while the world around him celebrated, Ethan sat alone in a rusted old car, staring out the window with a cold sandwich in his lap and no one waiting for him. No mother. No father. No applause. Just silence. Yet it was in that silence that something powerful began to stir. What unfolded inside that car would uncover a truth long buried, challenge the pride of a broken family, and spark a moment of connection so raw, so unexpected, it would change Ethan's life forever. On the day of his high school graduation, while joyous cheers filled the gymnasium and camera flashes danced like fireflies under the harsh fluorescent lights, Ethan Taylor stood alone just beyond the school's back entrance, hidden in the shadow of a crumbling brick wall, his cap slightly askew and the hem of his gown fluttering in the summer breeze. He wasn't late. He hadn't forgotten. He had deliberately stepped away, out of sight, out of celebration. His eyes scanned the horizon blankly, as if searching for something, or someone, who never came. His classmates were in clusters inside, their laughter rising like a tide, some crying tears of joy, others taking endless selfies with parents holding banners that read, "We're so proud of you." Ethan's phone was silent. No missed calls. No text. No one waiting in the parking lot. No mother waving excitedly through the crowd. No father pushing through to get a better photo. He felt like an extra in a movie about someone else's life. And yet, this was his big moment too. He had survived. He had made it through the endless foster homes, the silence of birthdays without candles, the nights he studied under a street lamp because the shelter's lights had gone out. But survival doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes, it just comes with silence. His hands, rougher than most boys his age from years of doing odd jobs to afford school supplies, clenched and unclenched by his side. A tremor passed through him, not from fear, but from the crushing weight of being forgotten. The diploma in his hand felt heavier than it should. Not because of its worth, but because he had no one to hand it to proudly, no one to say, "We did it." He leaned back against the wall, eyes stinging, heart thudding behind the stiff collar of his gown. He told himself not to cry. Not here. Not now. But the truth was, he wasn't just sad, he was angry. Angry at a world that had left him to raise himself. Angry that on a day built to celebrate family, he had none. And just as he turned his face away from the noise, trying to disappear, a faint voice cracked through the still air, a voice he hadn't heard in over a decade. "Ethan." His body froze. The sound struck something raw inside him, like a key turning in a forgotten lock. Slowly, he turned around. There, standing hesitantly by the school gate, was a woman with trembling hands and tear-glossed eyes. Her face was older now, but Ethan would have known her anywhere. His breath caught. Time seemed to stall. The storm of pain and memory surged forward all at once. I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I never stopped looking for you." And for the first time in years, Ethan wasn't sure whether to run, to scream, or to fall into her arms. For what seemed like an eternity, Ethan stood frozen, his heart beating wildly in his chest, each thud echoing in his ears like the sound of a drum in a distant storm. His gaze was locked onto the woman in front of him, and everything around him seemed to fade into a blur of noise and movement. The loud cheers from the gymnasium felt distant, like a muffled hum. His body screamed to run, to walk away from the source of so many years of pain, but his legs refused to obey. There she was, this woman who had abandoned him, the one who, despite all the years and distance, still lived somewhere deep in his heart. She was here, standing in front of him, trembling and uncertain. He could hardly breathe. The woman held a photo in her hand, a picture of him as a toddler, wide-eyed, clutching a stuffed bear he barely remembered. The image was so foreign yet so familiar. It was a reminder of a time when the world had seemed a little kinder, before life had split apart. The photo seemed like an absurd, fragile thing, one fragile thing in her hands, the rest of it too broken to be fixed. Her fingers were trembling as she clutched it, as though afraid that the photo would slip away like everything else she had failed to hold on to. Ethan's chest tightened, the weight of so many unspoken words pressing down on him, his body tense, his fists clenched at his sides. His thoughts were a whirlwind, hurt, confusion, anger, longing, and yet he couldn't bring himself to speak. He just stood there, silently seething, until she finally spoke. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said, her voice barely audible, cracked and full of sorrow. "I never wanted to leave you. But I needed to see you. Just once, to see if you'd still want to see me." Ethan's breath caught in his throat, each word feeling like a slap to his face, but somehow, there was something deeper, something unfamiliar in her eyes. She wasn't standing before him with the coldness he expected. No, her eyes were red and swollen from crying, her face etched with a quiet desperation. She had aged, yes, but in a way that only made the weight of the years between them even heavier. He had so many questions, but they all caught in his throat, tangled with anger and bitterness, lodged deep inside him. He wanted to scream. He wanted to lash out, to demand answers, to ask why hadn't she been there? Why hadn't she fought to get him back? He was just a kid, all alone in a world that swallowed him whole. The memories were bitter, the years spent in foster care, years of wondering where she was, why she hadn't come for him. He had grown up without her, surrounded by strangers, learning to survive on his own. But as he stood there, his rage burning hot, he also felt something else, a flicker of something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. Hope. Could this woman, this stranger who had once called herself his mother, be part of the reason he still had a heart that could feel? Could she have been part of him all along, waiting to be found again? His voice finally cracked out from deep within him, rough and raw. "Why now?" The words were barely a whisper, the anger still there but now mixed with something softer, more vulnerable. She opened her mouth to speak, but her lips trembled, struggling to form the words. Her eyes filled with tears once more, and she reached into the folds of her coat, pulling out a crumpled, yellowed envelope. She held it out to him with shaking hands, her voice barely above a whisper. "I couldn't bear it any longer, Ethan. All these years. I've carried this guilt, this pain. I couldn't make up for the time I lost, but I had to try. I had to find you, before it was too late." Ethan's gaze fell to the envelope in her hands, and for a moment, everything inside of him froze. He could feel the weight of the years pressing in around him, years of anger, of feeling abandoned, of surviving without her. His body was rigid, as if every muscle was locked in place. He couldn't bring himself to take it. Not yet. His mind was a mess of conflicting emotions. On one hand, he wanted to turn around and walk away, to slam the door on everything she represented. She left me. She abandoned me. But on the other hand, a small part of him, the part he thought had died long ago, ached. Could she really be sorry? Could she really have suffered too? "Are you really my mom?" he whispered, the words tasting strange as they left his mouth, foreign and impossible. She nodded slowly, her eyes brimming with more tears. "Yes. Yes, I am." Ethan didn't move. His hands clenched tighter at his sides, his pulse racing, his breath shallow and uneven. He felt the pull of that question, the one he had buried for so long, the one that could break him or heal him. Can I still have a mother? For a split second, he didn't know what to do. The floor beneath him felt too unstable, too uncertain, and everything felt too close, too fragile. Ethan stood there, his body frozen, a wave of emotions crashing over him. He had spent so many years building walls around his heart, each one a brick made of pain, anger, and betrayal. Yet, as he stared at her, the woman who had abandoned him when he needed her most, those walls began to tremble. His heart pounded in his chest, a harsh reminder that no matter how hard he tried to bury the past, it would always find a way back. The room felt smaller, suffocating, and the air seemed to press in around him, thick with years of unspoken words and unanswered questions. His mother's voice trembled as she spoke, breaking through the silence like a fragile thread. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for it anyway." The words hung in the air, her sincerity sharp against the cool detachment in Ethan's eyes. She was holding an envelope, its edges worn, the paper creased from years of being carried with the weight of guilt, regret, and a love that never had a chance to be fully expressed. Ethan's gaze flickered to the envelope in her hand, his throat tightening. It was a symbol of everything she had kept from him, everything she had hidden while he struggled alone, growing up without her. Without any explanation, any closure. He forced himself to speak, but his voice came out raspier than he expected, as though the mere act of speaking required more strength than he could summon. "Why now? After all this time, why are you here?" The words were out before he could stop them, sharp and accusatory. His hands clenched at his sides, fighting the urge to lash out, to accuse her of the years of pain he had lived through. The years when he had learned to survive, to trust no one but himself. She lowered her gaze, unable to meet his eyes for a moment. "Because I couldn't live with the regret anymore," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I couldn't live with the knowledge that I left you behind. You deserved better than that." She stepped closer, holding out the envelope, but Ethan didn't move. The envelope, he realized, was the key to something he wasn't sure he was ready to unlock. Was it a peace offering, or just another way for her to absolve herself of guilt? He stared at it, a sense of dread growing within him. He didn't want to touch it. Didn't want to open it. The idea of facing whatever was written inside terrified him. Would it change anything? Would it bring back all the pain? Or would it give him a chance to understand why she had left him, why she had abandoned him without a second thought? His mother's trembling hand pushed the envelope toward him again, this time with more urgency. "Please, Ethan. I just want you to know the truth. I know I can't make it right, but I can tell you what happened. I owe you that much." Ethan's stomach churned, and for a moment, he was paralyzed. The anger and the hurt were so overwhelming that they threatened to consume him. He had never imagined this moment, this confrontation, would feel like this. There was no grand moment of clarity, no instant forgiveness. Only confusion and fear, both directed inward and outward. He didn't know what he wanted anymore. He took the envelope, his fingers cold against the paper. The paper crinkled under his grip, the sound harsh in the stillness of the room. He ripped it open, almost violently, his eyes scanning the words that she had written. He could feel his pulse in his temples as he read, each word feeling like a punch to the gut, each sentence a reminder of how badly he had been let down. The letter was short, but its weight felt immense. "Ethan," he read aloud, the name bitter on his tongue. "I never wanted to leave you. I never wanted to hurt you. But I was lost, too lost to see what I was doing. I thought I was protecting you, that leaving was the only way. But I was wrong. I've spent every day wishing I could take back the past. But I can't. All I can do is beg for your forgiveness." The words blurred in front of his eyes as tears pricked at the edges of his vision. He fought them back, clenching his jaw to keep them from escaping. He wouldn't cry. Not now. Not for her. He felt the anger rise in him, bubbling up like a storm ready to break. You thought leaving me was protecting me, he spat, his voice rising. You left me to fend for myself. You left me to figure it all out. Do you know what that did to me? His mother's eyes filled with tears as she nodded, her lips trembling. I know, she whispered. I know. And I'm sorry. More sorry than you'll ever understand. Ethan's chest tightened, his breath coming in short, shallow bursts. He wanted to throw the letter away, to tear it up and walk out the door. He didn't need her apology. He didn't need her words. But then, something else stopped him. Something he couldn't quite explain. Beneath the anger, beneath the hurt, there was something else, a quiet ache. A yearning. A longing he didn't want to admit to himself. He took a shaky breath, his hands trembling as he folded the letter in half. I don't know if I can forgive you, he whispered, his voice low, almost broken. I don't know if I can ever forget what you did. But I'll try. I'll try, even if it's hard. His mother's face softened, her eyes flooding with relief and sorrow. She took a step toward him, as if she could bridge the distance between them with a single touch. But Ethan stepped back, not ready for that yet. Not ready to close the gap, not ready to let go of the pain that had defined his life for so long. He wasn't ready to forgive her. Not yet. I need time, he said quietly, the words heavy with the weight of everything he had lost. I need time to figure this out. To figure out what you really mean to me now. His mother nodded, tears streaming down her face as she whispered, I understand. Take all the time you need. Ethan turned away, the letter still clutched tightly in his hand. His mind was a storm of emotions, of confusion, of anger and grief and, somewhere beneath it all, the faintest glimmer of hope. He didn't know where this would lead, or if he would ever be able to forgive her. But for the first time in years, he felt something stir inside him, a possibility. A possibility that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as alone as he had always thought. Ethan sat in the dimly lit room, the letter crumpled in his hand, his grip tightening with every passing second. The words on the paper seemed to blur in front of his eyes, as if his emotions were waging a battle against the reality they conveyed. His heart was pounding in his chest, each beat a reminder of the years of pain, of the absence of a mother who should have been there, who should have cared. And yet, here she was, sending him a letter, a plea for forgiveness, for a second chance. The weight of it all felt suffocating, and he could barely bring himself to breathe without feeling like he was drowning in an ocean of conflicting emotions. He looked down at the letter again, his eyes tracing the familiar handwriting that had once filled his childhood with a strange sense of longing. His mother's words were delicate, careful, and filled with regret, but they felt so foreign to him now, like they belonged to someone he didn't even recognize. I'm sorry for abandoning you, for not being there when you needed me most, she had written. I know I can never undo the damage I've caused, but I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Ethan wanted to throw the letter across the room, to tear it to shreds and bury the memories of her deep inside him, where they couldn't reach him. But instead, he sat there, paralyzed, staring at the paper as if it held the key to everything. His mind was spinning, drowning in the waves of anger and disbelief that surged through him. How could she ask for forgiveness now? After all these years? After everything he had been through, the years of abandonment, the nights spent alone, questioning his worth, his place in the world? But beneath the fury, there was something else, a flicker of doubt, a tiny voice that whispered, what if she really means it? What if she truly regretted leaving him behind? Ethan hated that part of him, the part that still clung to the possibility that a mother, even one who had hurt him so deeply, could want redemption. That part of him wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, this could be the start of something better, something whole. He closed his eyes, his chest tightening with the raw emotion of it all. The pain was unbearable, a constant ache that had never really left him. But now, it was complicated by something new, something that felt even more painful than the anger. It was the fear of opening himself up to her again. Of trusting someone who had broken him before. Could he really forgive her? Could he allow her back into his life without it all falling apart again? Was it even possible to heal a wound so deep, so ingrained in the fabric of his very existence? As he sat there, lost in the chaos of his thoughts, the door creaked open. Ethan didn't even look up at first, his eyes still locked on the letter in his hand. But he heard the familiar sound of footsteps, the steady, calm rhythm of someone who had always been there for him. He knew instantly who it was, even before the figure stepped into the room. James. His best friend, the one person who had never wavered, who had been by his side through every trial, every heartbreak. James was the one person who understood the depth of Ethan's pain, the weight of his past, and the uncertainty that clouded his present. Ethan felt a flicker of relief at the sight of him, as if James's presence could somehow bring some clarity to the swirling storm inside his chest. "Ethan," James said softly, his voice a quiet anchor in the midst of Ethan's emotional chaos. "You all right?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he lowered his gaze, his fingers tightening around the letter again, the paper crinkling under his grip. He wanted to say something, anything, but the words caught in his throat. He could feel the tears threatening to spill, but he refused to let them. Not now. Not when he was already so raw, so exposed. "I don't know what to do," Ethan finally whispered, his voice hoarse. "She's here. After all these years, she's here, and she wants forgiveness." His voice broke on the last word, a sob that he quickly swallowed. "How am I supposed to just forgive her, James? After everything?" James didn't speak right away. Instead, he took a step forward and sat beside Ethan, his presence a comforting weight next to him. Ethan could feel the quiet support radiating from him, a steady presence in the storm that raged within him. James had always been there for him, through every hardship, every tear, every silent moment of pain. And now, when Ethan was on the brink of breaking, James was still there, silent, patient, understanding. "You don't have to do anything right now, man," James said quietly. "Take your time. You don't have to forgive her. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for." Ethan let out a shaky breath, his shoulders sagging as the tension slowly began to drain from his body. He wanted to believe James, to trust that he didn't have to make a decision in this moment, but the weight of the letter, the weight of his mother's words, pressed down on him like an anchor he couldn't shake off. I don't know what it would even look like," Ethan murmured, his voice barely audible. "How do I even begin to forgive someone who's been gone for so long? Someone who left me without a second thought?" James's hand landed gently on his shoulder, a silent offering of comfort, of solidarity. "You don't have to have all the answers right now. And you don't have to do this alone. You've got me. I've got your back, no matter what you decide." Ethan felt a lump form in his throat, but this time it wasn't anger. It was something else, something that had been buried deep inside him for so long: gratitude. He was so tired of carrying everything on his own, of pretending that he didn't need anyone, that he could handle everything by himself. For once, he let himself breathe, let the weight of James's words sink in. Maybe he didn't have to carry all of this alone. "I don't know what I'm supposed to feel," Ethan whispered, staring at the crumpled letter in his hand. "But I do know this: I don't want to make any decisions out of anger. I don't want to let her pull me back into the past, into a place I've worked so hard to escape." James nodded, his expression softening with understanding. "And you won't. Whatever happens, you're in control. Take your time. You don't owe her anything, Ethan. Not yet. Not until you're ready. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the tension in his chest ease just slightly. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, he didn't feel so alone in this. Maybe, just maybe, he could take his time and figure out what he needed, without the weight of expectations pressing down on him. Thanks, Ethan muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. I need to figure this out. I need to make sense of it. James gave him a reassuring smile, the kind that said everything was going to be okay, even if Ethan didn't believe it yet. You'll figure it out. I know you will. You've always been strong, Ethan. And you don't have to face this alone. Ethan nodded, his fingers still clutching the letter, but now with less of the desperation that had consumed him moments before. The road ahead was uncertain, and the pain wasn't going to disappear overnight, but for the first time in a long while, he felt like he had the space to breathe, to truly think, and to make a choice on his own terms. Ethan sat motionless on the edge of the worn sofa, his fingers lightly brushing the edges of the letter. The paper felt almost alien in his hands, its edges crisp with the passage of time, the words scrawled in his mother's handwriting standing out in stark contrast to the cold emptiness that surrounded him. Every syllable felt like a weight pressing down on his chest. I'm sorry, Ethan. I know I can never undo the pain I've caused you, but I hope you'll hear me out. He read it again. And again. The letter that had arrived out of nowhere, the letter that had opened the door to a past he tried so hard to forget, was now demanding his attention, demanding he feel something, anything, about the woman who had abandoned him all those years ago. His mind swirled with memories. He could still see the younger version of himself, standing in the middle of an empty room, eyes searching for his mother, for her voice, her touch, the comforting embrace he had only ever known in fleeting moments before she disappeared. The loneliness of that childhood was like a dark cloud that had followed him into adulthood, never quite dissipating. He had built walls around himself, walls so thick that even the notion of forgiveness seemed impossible. How could I ever forgive her? His jaw clenched at the thought. The betrayal ran so deep, so painfully ingrained in his bones, that he had come to accept it as part of who he was. Yet, despite the anger, despite the hurt, something else stirred within him as he reread the letter. Beneath the layers of resentment, a flicker of something he thought he had long buried began to surface, doubt. What if she really is sorry? What if she really has changed? The questions were like whispers in his mind, soft but persistent, refusing to be silenced. It made no sense. After everything, the abandonment, the broken promises, the years of silence, it didn't make sense. But the letter, the rawness of it, spoke to him in ways nothing else ever had. His heart wavered between two forces, the child who had been hurt beyond measure, and the adult who wanted to believe in the possibility of healing. The silence in the room felt suffocating as Ethan stood up and paced in slow circles. He tried to focus on his breathing, to steady himself, but the emotions swirling inside of him were too much to contain. Anger, fear, hope, he could taste them all. A part of him wanted to crumble the letter in his hands, to cast it away and forget this moment entirely. He could feel the weight of his own vulnerability, and it terrified him. The walls he had carefully constructed around his heart were crumbling, piece by piece, and the thought of it made him recoil. He dropped the letter onto the table and grabbed his phone, almost instinctively. He needed to talk to someone, needed to voice the whirlwind of emotions crashing through him. His fingers hovered over the screen for a moment before he dialed Mia's number. It rang only once before she picked up, her voice immediately familiar and comforting. Ethan? Hey, what's up? He swallowed hard, trying to steady his voice. Mia, I don't know what to do, he began, his words rushed and jagged. She wants forgiveness. Mom. After all this time, she sent me a letter. And I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can let go of all the years of hurt, the years of anger. Mia's silence on the other end was heavy, but it wasn't judgmental. I'm not going to tell you what to do, Ethan. You have every right to feel angry. But I also know how much this has weighed on you. I just want you to think about it, okay? Take your time. You don't have to decide anything right now. Ethan felt his throat tighten as the words his sister spoke lingered in the air. You don't have to decide anything right now. It was true. He didn't have to rush this. He didn't have to let the past dictate his every decision, but the part of him that craved closure, that wanted to heal, was now in conflict with the part of him that couldn't forget. Thanks, Mia, he murmured, his voice a little softer now. I don't know if I can forgive her. I don't know if I even want to. I get it, Mia responded gently. I know you don't want to feel like you're giving her another chance just to be hurt again. But you also deserve peace, Ethan. Not just for her, but for you. You don't have to carry this anger forever. Ethan let her words settle in, but they only seemed to open up more questions. Was forgiveness about letting go of the past? Or was it about giving someone the chance to redeem themselves? He wasn't sure he had the answer. Not yet. The thought of forgiving his mother felt like a betrayal to the version of himself he had worked so hard to protect, someone who had never needed her, someone who had learned to survive without her. But there was a quiet part of him, a part buried deep, that wanted to believe in redemption. Maybe it wasn't about erasing the past. Maybe it was about choosing to move forward, to not let the past hold him hostage anymore. Just as he was lost in thought, his phone buzzed again. This time, it was James calling. He didn't hesitate. Hey, man, Ethan greeted, his voice hoarse but steady. Hey, I know this is a lot for you to take in, James said, his voice understanding, yet firm. But if you need someone to talk to, or just need a distraction for a bit, I'm here. You don't have to face all of this alone. Ethan felt a wave of gratitude for his friend's unwavering support. I don't even know where to start, James. I'm so angry. So hurt. But there's something else, too. Something that wants to believe her. I don't know if I'm ready to forgive her, but I don't know if I can keep carrying this bitterness either. You don't have to decide right away, James said. But the fact that you're even questioning forgiveness? That's huge. It means you're ready to move forward, no matter what that looks like. Ethan leaned back against the wall, letting James's words wash over him. Maybe he didn't need to make a decision today. Maybe the process of healing wasn't a straight line. Maybe it was okay to let himself feel everything, anger, pain, confusion, before he decided where to go next. Forgiveness didn't have to be immediate. It didn't have to be perfect. It just had to be something he chose for himself, when he was ready. Thanks, man, Ethan said quietly, his voice filled with a new kind of resolve. I think I needed to hear that. In a world that often overlooks those who suffer in silence, Ethan Taylor's story reminds us that some of the most powerful moments don't come from grand stages or loud applause, but from quiet, painful truths finally spoken. It took a lonely graduation, a cold meal, and a broken heart to bring one family's buried shame to light. But from that pain came understanding, reconciliation, and hope. Because sometimes, the moment you feel most forgotten is the moment your story begins to matter, not just to you, but to the world watching. And in that truth, Ethan found not just justice, but peace.